So today I'm going to be talking about Rejection by Tony Tulathimutte. Apologies, because I'm pretty sure I have totally butchered his surname. Rejection is a novel made up of 7 interconnected stories that all explore rejection in modern day life. The overarching theme is, of course, the emotional spectrum of rejection, encompassing the kind of societal but also personal dimensions that entails. Identity and the internet also play a massive role within the novel. Some of the stories explore online personas and that kind of yearning for connection, but they're also exploring the sort of internet interactions in general and sort of what that has on one's own self-worth. The novel is absolutely packed to the gills with satire, and Tulathimutte, through his characters, is exploring kind of millennial anxieties but also millennial sensitivities. He's flipping cultural critique both into discomfort, and I mean real discomfort. This book, it made me feel things that I have not felt reading a novel in a while. I was like squirming at some of the situations, the anxieties of these characters. Yeah, I mean, real discomfort whilst reading this. Some of the stories, some of the things these characters are talking about, they do not make you feel good. But also at the same time, at the exact same time, through just a single sentence, he is also exploring how hilarious these things are. The absolute hilarity and ridiculousness of these kind of modern discomforts, modern issues, modern complexities. Yeah, he nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And just to hammer home that point, this book is funny. It is very, very, very funny. It is the funniest book I've read this year. Right, so I'm going to give you an overview of each of the short stories, and no spoilers contained within. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what they're about. However, I went into this novel knowing absolutely nothing whatsoever, and I think that's why it had such an impact on me. So if you do want to skip over my sort of overview of each of the short stories, then feel free to click on the old timestamp here and skip ahead. The first story is called The Feminist, and we follow a man who identifies as a feminist. However, he is struggling with rejection. As the story progresses, we see his kind of disillusionment at being a feminist and an ally, and how he expects those things to make him more attractive to the opposite sex. However, he's not attractive to the opposite sex. He is using feminism as a kind of crutch, a kind of way to make him go, but hey, look at me, I'm with you, I'm your friend, you should be attracted to me. And the story starts to really explore what becomes of him as that rejection keeps happening, and his ideas on feminism and how he sort of uses feminism within his life. It is fascinating. In the next story picks, we explore a woman who has sex with one of her good friends, a friend she's known for a long time, and they've sort of hung out for years. They have sex, it finally happens, and she starts to grow these feelings for him. They both agree in the moment that they're friends, they should stay friends. However, this sort of obsession with him starts to build and build and build. As the story progresses, we start to see how damaging this obsessiveness from her is becoming, not just with her and her relationship with her friend, which now doesn't really exist, but also with her and her own friends. We get lots of online discourse in like WhatsApp groups about her feelings and what she needs and why she feels she's being led along. And we quickly get all these different opinions and all these different sides coming into play, which both add to her obsession, but also add to her anger at the same time. The way it all plays out, the way it builds, the way it's structured, just amazing. In the next story, Hega, we follow protagonist Kant as he is coming out and coming to grips with coming out for the first time, but also him sort of battling with these sort of intimate insecurities that he has. The story is following his desires, his shame. He gets into a relationship, but ultimately it's his inability to communicate what he wants and his understanding of what he needs, and all that repression over those years sort of not being able to work in kind of a very healthy, communicative relationship. The story also follows this sort of secretive request that he puts to someone who makes custom porn films, and he highlights exactly what he wants this porn actor to do in the porn film he is going to pay him to make. And this story was jaw-dropping. I mean, the level of detail that Kant puts into this personal porn film he wants this actor to make is just... it is not for the faint-hearted. It is not for the faint-hearted. The next story, Our Dope Future, satirizes a tech entrepreneur as he kind of like sacrifices everything in his life for productivity. He needs to be the most productive and best version of himself possible, and we slowly watch as that sort of drive and need in him just completely destroys him. It makes him an awful person, but it also completely strips away his ability to make any genuine connections with anybody, seeing everything as a kind of power struggle and ultimately revealing that he just wants to be all powerful and everything to work exactly how he wants to. And the way it plays out, and this does connect with a character from a previous story, yeah, the way it all connects, oh, yeah, just bloody hell. The next story is called Main Character, and in that story we follow the sibling of Kant from the Hega story. And apologies, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that word correctly. Now, this story covers a lot, and I mean a lot, to do with race, being Asian American, modern society, pronouns, identity, gender. This story is absolutely incredible, and it covers so much ground, but the main crux of it is to do with sort of validation and control within a social media driven world. But that's the tip of the iceberg of this story, but there's just too much going on in this one for me to cover it. But yeah, it covers, it's dense, and yeah, just, you gotta read it. The next short story is called 16 Metaphors, and this one does exactly what it says on the tin. It kind of completely ditches any kind of narrative format, and we just get these 16 different short little metaphors on rejection. And it slowly sort of builds. It's very funny, and it's almost like this kind of little sort of moment of rest after the sort of like how dense main character story is. And the last story is called Rejection. Now, I can't tell you anything about this story because it would be a massive spoiler, but a little bit later on in the video, I'm going to sort of talk about this area because it could be a possible dislike for some. So I will talk about that. I will give another spoiler warning when I get to that bit. So, what did I like and what didn't I like? What I liked. Tulathimute's writing is just so smart. It is so smart, and it is so witty, and it is so funny, and it makes me feel things, everybody. It makes me feel gross. It makes me feel squirmy. It also makes me laugh. I feel like it's just, his writing is just for me. And I'm going to get into my sort of dislikes, because I don't really have any dislikes for this novel. But I have got some things I think some people may dislike. But yeah, his writing is so sharp. It's so witty. It's so smart. Every single page has like multiple sentences or passages or moments that you could highlight, and just you could fill a book with all of his observations and just how on point they are. Yeah, his writing is so good. I really like how the book is structured. It's unconventional, which is really in keeping with the kind of contemporary feel and the sort of like internet rich world that these characters are living in. Yeah, you know, we just get like group chats and different things like that come across the page. And I just felt like, yeah, it just immersed me in the world of these characters so much more. It was a really smart choice, and it really worked for the book. And the last thing I absolutely adored, is the emotional range that takes place in this novel. Now, it might be right place, right time for me when reading this, but it is so rich in what it's covering, from like race, identity, the internet, relationships, love, sex. Everything is covered, and everything is covered in a way that makes me feel just a myriad of different things. And what a joy that is. What a wonderful exploration that is. And of course, you know, the main theme is rejection, so we are mainly feeling it from that kind of emotional standpoint. But I feel like Tulathimutte has just done an incredible job at zoning in on that one feeling, understanding how sort of prevalent that feeling is in modern society, especially with social media and what that does to us. Oh, yeah. Absolutely amazing. Now, as already mentioned, I don't have anything that I actively disliked in this novel. I thought it was absolutely amazing. However, because, I don't know, I'm reviewing it, I feel like I should, as I do in some of my reviews, highlight things that some readers might not like. So I know I'm giving it all this praise, and you might be a bit like, oh, mine and Andy's reading tastes are a bit similar. However, listen to what I've got to say here, because you might read those things and go, actually, no, this book isn't for me. This novel is packed with graphic content. It is raw, it is unfiltered, and in moments, quite jaw-dropping what is being talked about. Not like graphic in a kind of violent way, and I think the reason it feels more graphic is because we connect to these characters so quickly, they feel so human, they feel so real, that when they are talking about these desires or these things that they're doing, it hits you. And I think for a lot of people, it might just completely put them off. How graphic the content is just, it's just not for everyone. This novel is complex and dense. There is a lot of terminology used in there that actually, the reason I read this book so slowly is because I had to look up quite a lot of things just to make sure I could get my head around them. A lot of kind of internet lingo. God, that makes me sound old. But, a lot of internet slang or just terminology within it. And it doesn't sort of stop to hold your hand. It just keeps going and going and going. And I did have to just sort of like pause and go, wait a minute, I'm flying through this. I need to go back 3 pages because I definitely didn't know what that meant. And I need to know what that means in order to keep going. So that is one thing that may put off a lot of people. But that's it. That's it for things that I think you might not like about this novel. Everything else, if everything else I've said has, tickled your interest, then definitely pick this one up. Right, so everyone, I messed up. I mentioned earlier that there was a slight sort of dislike that was a massive spoiler that I was going to mention, and I finished recording and I started editing and I realised I didn't film that bit. I didn't film the thing that is a spoiler. So here we go. I'm going to talk about that thing. It is a massive spoiler, so I'm going to put yet another timestamp up on the screen for you to skip to for my final conclusion. But here we go. So what happens in the final story, Rejection, is that we get a sort of metafictional critique where the protagonist is reading, so the protagonist Tony Tulathimutte is reading a rejection letter for the manuscript that is the novel we've just been reading. And it's sort of, at start, I was a bit like, that feels like a bit of a cheap trick to kind of pull on us. However, it does start to really pull together, which is why I'm still rating this book so highly. It does start to pull together this idea that possibly this is a bit of autofiction that we're reading, that a lot of these stories are actually deeply woven into Tony Tulathamutte's own story. And then when he starts reading through this sort of rejection letter that's pinpointing all the reasons that these stories are maybe a little bit sort of vapid, it just becomes this big sort of self-reflection on this sort of authorial vulnerability that Tony has within this story that he's telling, or the stories that he's telling. So there you go. That's the sort of, it's not really a twist, but that's sort of what happens in that final story, and we do get hints at that in the story before main character. We start to see glimpses of Tony the author coming into the story itself. And again, at first I thought this was a massive red flag for me. I was like, this feels like, it was all a dream, that kind of thing. But the more this critique of the novel itself goes on, the more you start to pull together all these different pieces. And actually, I was like, no, do you know what? It does work. You just have to stick with it. In conclusion, Rejection is a brilliant, honestly brilliant novel, but it will be polarizing. If you enjoy kind of like bold characters, bold narratives, and satires, and something that is just, so immensely funny, but also so dark and sad at the same time, then this is a novel for you. Its thematic focus on failure, rejection, and connection, all told through this kind of like the internet, or this sort of like digital lens that we're seeing, makes this book really timely. It absolutely solidifies this book as a kind of like 2010 to now. If you wanted to encapsulate that feeling of rejection in modern society, then this is the book I would recommend. I think this book is going to stand the test of time because it feels like a time capsule of this moment. I think that those of us who are so well attuned to kind of the internet age, social media, and having our lives online, and maybe not completely depending on it, but understanding its importance, but also understanding the ridiculousness of it as well. For those of us who can play or sort of walk that line, I think this novel has got a lot to offer. I think we will be able to see ourselves in it, but also be able to see the hilarity in the way that we think about it as well. It is just so smart and so thought-provoking. And this shouldn't be any surprise to anybody, but this is 5 stars out of 5. I thought it was utterly outstanding. So yeah, 5 stars out of 5. It is my favourite book released in 2024 that I've read, without a doubt. Unfortunately, I've got a bit of a struggle now between this book and John Williams' Stoner for my favourite read of 2024. I'm going to have to really have a think about that. I think Stoner is still going to win out because it's had the test of time. It's still relevant now to me. But yeah. But as far as books released this year go, without a doubt the best. So there you go. That is my review of Tony Tulathimutte Rejection. Again, I am so sorry if I've been butchering his name throughout the entirety of this video. If anyone knows and can sort of like break down how I should be pronouncing it in the comments below, that would be a big help for also anyone else watching. But yeah, have you read this book? I mean, a lot of it depends. I know it's out in the States and it's not released in the UK until February 2025. I was able to get it because a friend sent it to me. So yeah, I don't know if you would be able to get it if you go on Amazon and change your settings to America and pay the extra to get it over, or just wait till February. Just wait. Actually, just wait till Feb. It's not that good. Well, I don't know. No, I would say just wait till Feb. But anyone in the States who follows this channel or anywhere else, if it is released, then it's an instant buy from me. And for those of us in the UK, then please just wait with eager anticipation for its release date. It is a goodie. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. I hope you're well, and I hope you're enjoying whatever you might be reading, and I'll see you all on the next one.